"It's about your family," whispered the elderly woman, sliding a yellowed envelope across the table to my trembling fingers. My wife Helena had left less than a minute ago to take an urgent work call in our backyard. We were finishing our 2-year wedding anniversary dinner when the phone rang. Helena kissed my forehead and murmured, "I'll be right back, honey," before disappearing through the back door. I hadn't even heard the doorbell ring. The woman, who looked to be in her 70s, entered through the front door as if she had a key. She had gray hair tied back in a bun, simple but clean clothes, and eyes that carried a deep and familiar sadness. "Who are you?" I asked, pushing my chair back, but she raised a hand to reassure me. "My name is Dorothy Miller. My son's name was Kevin." The name meant nothing to me, but something in the way she spoke, in the past tense, made me swallow hard. He died 2 years ago. Car accident, according to her. Dorothy pointed her chin in the direction Helena had taken. 3 weeks after the wedding. He left everything to his widow. My name is Joss, and at 34, I thought I knew my wife better than anyone else in the world. Helena Rodriguez, a successful architect, with a smile that lit up any room, a woman who won me over with her intelligence and apparent vulnerability after a difficult divorce. We met at a cafe near my accounting office. She spilled coffee on my shirt and insisted on paying for the dry cleaning. 3 months later, we were living together. 6 months later, we were married. Too fast, everyone said. But when you find the right person. "You must be confusing my wife with someone else," I replied, but my voice sounded less convincing than I would have liked. Dorothy opened the envelope with slightly trembling fingers. From inside, she took out a faded photograph. A young man, blonde like me, smiling next to a brunette woman. A woman identical to Helena. This photo was taken 2 weeks before my Kevin died. Dorothy turned the photo over. On the back, handwriting I recognized immediately, "Forever your Helena." The blood ran cold in my veins. The same handwriting as the birthday cards she used to write me. The same signature as the documents we signed together. "Kevin left a house, a car, and a considerable savings account," Dorothy continued. "Everything was in his name, but she convinced my son to make a will leaving everything to her in case something happened." My hands began to sweat. In recent months, Helena had insisted that I update my will. "We're married now, Joss. It's normal for couples." I had agreed. After all, I had no close family. My parents died in an accident when I was 25. Helena was all I had. And Helena knew it. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, even though part of me already knew the answer. "Because Kevin wasn't the first." Dorothy placed more photos on the table. "And you won't be the last." If this story is touching your heart as much as it touched mine that night, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to find out how this devastating revelation would become the turning point in my life. I heard Helena's footsteps coming back down the hall. Dorothy quickly got up, putting the photos away, but leaving one on my lap. "Apartment 312, Riverside Building. Tomorrow at 9 p.m., she whispered before disappearing through the same door she had entered. When Helena returned, smiling and apologizing for the interruption, she found me sitting alone at the table, staring into space. But under my napkin was hidden the proof that everything I believed about my life was a carefully constructed lie. "How was the call?" I asked when Helena returned, forcing a smile as she surreptitiously slipped the photo onto my plate. "Just work, honey. You know how it is." Helena kissed my cheek, her cold lips against my skin. "Shall we finish our anniversary dinner? I made your favorite cake." I watched as she cut slices of the chocolate cake she had lovingly prepared that morning. The same hands that had written "forever" on the back of a photo with another man. The same hands that, according to Dorothy, had inherited a dead man's fortune. "Helena," I began cautiously, "were you married before me?" She paused for a split second, the knife suspended in midair, before continuing to cut. "You know I haven't, Joss. I was engaged once, but it didn't work out." Her voice remained as sweet as ever. "Why do you ask?" "Just curious." But I knew she was lying. The photograph in my lap burned like silent evidence. In the weeks that followed, I began to notice details that had previously gone unnoticed. How Helena always knew exactly where to find important documents in the house, documents that I should have organized myself before we got married. How she knew my bank's routine perfectly, even suggesting specific times for our visits. "It's better to go on Tuesday morning," she would say about our trip to the bank to add her name to my accounts. Less traffic, more personalized attention. And I, in love and trusting, agreed with everything. One night, 3 days after meeting Dorothy, I woke up and found Helena sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open. When she saw me, she quickly closed the screen. "I couldn't sleep," she explained. "I was just checking out some architectural designs for inspiration." But the reflection in the window had shown me a completely different screen. My bank's website. "Helena, why were you on the bank's website?" "I wasn't, honey. It must have been the previous page you left open." Another lie. I never accessed the bank from my personal laptop. I always used my office computer for security reasons. The next day, I called my bank manager under the pretext of checking some information about our joint life insurance. "Oh yes, Mr. Joss. Your wife was here yesterday asking about the same details," he cheerfully informed me. How lucky to have a wife so involved in family financial planning. My blood ran cold. Helena hadn't mentioned any visit to the bank. I started doing little tests. I casually mentioned a promotion at work that didn't exist. The following week, Helena brought up the subject, suggesting that maybe it was time to increase our life insurance, since your income was growing. I purposely placed a fake document about a fictitious inheritance from a distant uncle on my study desk. 2 days later, Helena asked if I had any relatives who could leave me anything, just for future planning. Each test confirmed what I least wanted to believe. My wife was studying me as an investment. One afternoon, I finally mustered the courage to investigate further. I took advantage of Helena having a work meeting to rummage through her personal belongings, something I had never done in our marriage. In a box at the back of our closet, I found documents that made my world completely collapse. Marriage certificates. Not 1, but 4. Helena Rodriguez had married me. But she had also been Helena Martinez, married to Kevin Miller. Helena Santos, married to Daniel Thompson. And Helena Williams, married to Robert Chun. All different last names. All certificates from different times over the past 6 years. And in each folder, a substantial life insurance policy with Helena as the beneficiary. My hands shook when I found another document, death certificates. Kevin Miller, car accident. Daniel Thompson, severe food poisoning. Robert Chun, accidental fall on a trail. 3 men killed in circumstances that could have been accidents. 3 inheritances that went straight to my wife. At the bottom of the box, I found something even more disturbing, a notebook with handwritten notes. My name was on the last page, along with intimate details about my life that she had collected during our relationship. Joss, accountant, no family, considerable assets, confident personality, easily manipulated financially. Life insurance updated in October. Will changed in November. I was just the next item on her list. When I heard the key turning in the lock, I quickly rearranged everything and closed the box. Helena came in humming, carrying shopping bags. "Hi, honey. I bought that wine you love. How about we make a special dinner tonight?" She smiled at me with the same sweetness as always, but now I saw something different in her eyes. Something calculating and cold that had been there all along. "Sure," I replied, forcing a smile back. "That would be great." But as Helena took ingredients out of the bags, my mind raced desperately. I had discovered the truth about who she really was. The question now was, how long did I have before I became the 4th name on her list of death certificates? And more importantly, how could I get out of this deadly trap without her realizing that I already knew everything? That night, Helena prepared the special dinner with meticulous care she had never shown before. I watched her every move in the kitchen, every spice she added, every pot she washed twice. "You seem tense, honey," she commented, without taking her eyes off the sauce she was slowly stirring. "Hard day at work?" "A little," I lied, keeping my voice steady. "Just a few complex reports." But as I spoke, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Helena was wearing rubber gloves to cook. Gloves she had never worn before in 2 years of marriage. During dinner, she insisted that I try everything first, watching closely as I took each bite. When I pretended to be satisfied and stopped eating, I saw a flash of irritation cross her face. "Don't you like it?" I can make something else, she offered, but there was a hardness in her voice that she couldn't completely hide. It's delicious, I'm just not very hungry today. Helena smiled, but her eyes remained cold. What a pity. I put so much love into this special recipe. That night, pretending to be asleep, I heard her whispering on the phone in the bathroom. I caught fragments of the conversation that confirmed my worst fears. It didn't work. He barely touched the food. I need another method, more natural. Yes, I understand the urgency. The insurance expires in 30 days. My heart raced. Life insurance. Of course. Helena wasn't just planning my death, she had a deadline. The next day, I took advantage of her leaving for a work meeting to call Dorothy Miller using the number she had scribbled on the back of the photograph. Joss. Her voice trembled when she answered. Are you okay? I was afraid that. I'm alive for now, I replied. I need to know everything about your son Kevin. How exactly did he die? Dorothy sighed deeply. Kevin was cautious. He never drove when it rained, always wore his seatbelt. But that day, Helena insisted he pick up medicine for her terrible headache at the pharmacy across town. And his car veered off the road on a curve he had known since he was a teenager. The coroner said he had taken an overdose of pain medication, something that made him drowsy. Helena cried so much at the funeral, saying she felt guilty for asking him to go out in that storm. The same Helena who, last week, had commented that I should take something for my headaches caused by work stress. The same one who suggested a specific pharmacy that had the best natural medicines. Dorothy, I need to meet the families of the other men. Daniel Thompson and Robert Chun. Are you in contact with them? Robert Chun, his sister Lisa, still lives in town. She never believed the official version of his death. But Daniel Thompson, no one questioned it much. He had no close family. Can you set up a meeting with Lisa Chin? I can try. But Joss, Dorothy's voice became urgent, please be careful. Helena she's different. When she finds out you know something. The line went silent for a moment before Dorothy whispered, Kevin tried to tell me something the last time we talked. He said Helena was asking strange questions about our family, our house, whether I had a will. He said she wanted to know all about our neighbors, our routine. A chill ran down my spine. Helena had asked the same questions about my life, my habits, my work. Questions that seemed like romantic interest, but which I now understood as reconnaissance. That afternoon, Lisa Chen agreed to meet me at a discreet cafe in the city center. She was an Asian woman in her 40s, with intelligent eyes and a defensive posture that relaxed slightly when I showed her the photograph of Helena with Kevin. My brother Robert was an engineer, she began, nervously stirring her cup of tea. Meticulous, he planned everything in advance. The idea of him going hiking alone on a foggy morning, without telling anyone, was completely out of character. Was Helena with him? No. She said she had gotten sick at the last minute, food poisoning. Robert went alone because he didn't want to waste the mountain hotel reservation she had made as a surprise. Lisa paused, her eyes filling with tears. They found his body at the foot of a cliff. The police said he slipped on a wet rock. But Robert knew that trail, Joss. He'd walked it dozens of times. Did you suspect Helena? I did. But she was devastated, inconsolable. And, Lisa hesitated, she was pregnant. My blood ran cold. Pregnant. Or so she said. After the funeral, she said she had lost the baby due to stress. We never saw any medical documents. And 3 months later, she had moved to another city with all of Robert's inheritance. 2 crucial pieces fell into place in my mind. Helena always said she wanted children in the future. And she had recently suggested that we take out more life insurance, with our future family in mind. Now I understood the whole pattern. Helena wasn't just a murderer, she was a meticulous architect who used men's hopes for family and genuine love to create perfect scenarios for fatal accidents. I went home that night knowing I had 2 options, run away immediately or find a way to expose her before she could kill me. But when I opened the door, Helena was waiting in the living room, holding my open laptop. Joss, she said in a strangely calm voice, we need to talk about your interesting research today. On the laptop screen, I could clearly see the search history I had forgotten to delete. Names she recognized perfectly, Dorothy Miller, Kevin Miller, Lisa Chun, Robert Chun. Helena slowly closed the laptop, her eyes never leaving mine. It seems you've discovered my little secret. At that moment, looking at the cold smile that had completely replaced the mask of a loving wife, I realized that the pretense was over. Now it was a matter of survival. And Helena had just informed me that she knew exactly what I had discovered. The question was, how much time did I have before she decided to accelerate her plans? So you know, Helena repeated, walking slowly around me like a predator examining its prey. The question now is, what are we going to do about it? I kept my posture steady, but my mind was racing. Helena was no longer pretending to be the loving wife. The mask had fallen completely, revealing something cold and calculating that made my blood run cold. You killed 4 men, I stated, my voice surprisingly steady. 5, she corrected casually, as if correcting a grocery bill. Kevin, Daniel, Robert, Marcus. And there's a 6th you haven't discovered yet. Helena smiled with a coldness that made me take a step back. Tommy Williams. My first husband, 8 years ago. It was an accident, drowning. I was still perfecting my technique. 6 men dead. 6 lives destroyed to feed her greed. Why? Was all I could whisper. Helena sat elegantly on the sofa, as if we were discussing the dinner menu. Money, obviously. But also the challenge. Finding out exactly what each man values most, using that against him, and then, well, accidents happen. She paused, her eyes shining with a disturbed satisfaction. You were particularly easy, Joss. A lonely man, no family, desperate for connection. All I had to do was be sweet and interested. You practically handed your life to me on a silver platter. The humiliation burned in my throat, but I forced myself to remain calm. Helena was clearly enjoying her superiority, and the more she talked, the more information I would get. And now? I asked. Now you have a choice. Helena stood up, walking to the window. You can pretend this conversation never happened. Continue to be my loving husband. Live your life normally until you have an unfortunate accident in a few weeks. Or you can try to expose me. Go to the police with your crazy theories. Helena laughed softly. But who will believe you? I am a respected architect with no criminal record. You are a clearly disturbed man making wild accusations against your devoted wife. She was right, and we both knew it. Without concrete evidence, my word meant nothing against the reputation Helena had built. There's a third option, she continued, turning to face me. You could become my partner. What? Think about it, Joss. You're an accountant. You know financial systems. You know how to move money without leaving a trace. I provide the charm and strategy. You provide the technical expertise. Helena walked over to me, placing a hand on my shoulder. We could be a formidable team. The suggestion was as shocking as it was repugnant. You're crazy. I'm being practical. Her hand squeezed my shoulder hard enough to hurt. This is your best chance for survival, Joss. Accept the offer and live. Refuse and, accidents happen all too often. That night, Helena slept peacefully beside me, as if our conversation had been about renovating the kitchen. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, processing every word she had said. In the morning, Helena prepared breakfast, humming as she always did. When she offered me scrambled eggs, I politely declined. I'm not hungry. You need to eat something, honey, she insisted, but there was a hardness in her voice. I made it especially for you. Maybe later. Helena studied my face for a long moment before shrugging and eating alone. But I noticed how she didn't touch the eggs she had prepared for me. At work, I took advantage of every moment alone to do some research. I used the office computer to avoid leaving any traces at home and discovered details that made my blood run cold. Tommy Williams, the first husband Helena had mentioned, had indeed drowned during a honeymoon trip to Cabo. The body was found 3 days later, and Helena received a life insurance payout of $200,000. Marcus Thompson had died of severe food poisoning after dining at an expensive restaurant. Helena had chosen to celebrate a promotion at his job. Inheritance, a house valued at $300,000. The pattern was clear and meticulous. Helena didn't just kill, she planned every detail to maximize financial gain while minimizing suspicion. During lunch, I called Dorothy Miller from a payphone. "Dorothy, I need your help. Helena knows I found out about her." "My God," Dorothy whispered. "Are you safe?" "For now." "She made me an offer, to become her partner." "Don't do it, Joss. No matter what she promises, she plans to kill you. It's in her nature." "I know. But it buys me time. Time to build a case against her that the police can't ignore." Dorothy was silent for a moment. "What do you need?" "Details about all the other men. Dates, locations, insurance policies. Anything that can prove a pattern. And I need the names of family members who can testify about Helena's strange behavior." "I can get that. Lisa Chun still has all her brother's documents. And there's a private investigator who investigated Marcus Thompson's death on his own. His sister never believed the official version." "Can you set up meetings with them?" "I can try. But Joss," Dorothy hesitated. "How much time do you think you have?" It was the question I feared most. "I don't know. Helena mentioned a few weeks before setting me up with an accident. But if she suspects I'm building a case, it could be much less time." That night, I returned home determined to maintain the facade of normality. Helena greeted me with a kiss and a smile, but her eyes constantly studied me, looking for signs that I was up to something. "How was work, dear?" "Normal. Reports, spreadsheets, nothing exciting." "That's good. I thought we could go out to dinner tonight. There's a new restaurant I want to try." Every invitation from Helena now carried an underlying threat. Restaurants where she could add something to my food. Outings where accidents could happen. "Actually, I'm a little tired. How about we order in?" Helena forced a smile. "Sure. You choose." While we waited for the delivery, Helena watched me flip through magazines, check emails, perform perfectly normal activities. But her every move was calculated to remind me of her presence, of her control over the situation. "Joss," she said eventually, "I hope you're seriously considering my proposal." "I'm thinking about it." "Don't think too much." Helena stood up, kissing the top of my head. "Some opportunities don't wait forever." If you're following this haunted journey of discovery and secret planning, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Stories like this reveal how the most dangerous people are those who hide their true faces behind familiar smiles. That night, while Helena slept, I quietly went down to my home office and got to work. I created encrypted files on a flash drive that I hid in my car. I documented everything: dates, conversations, names, behavioral patterns. Most importantly, I established secure contacts. Dorothy connected me with Lisa Chen and private investigator Marcus Rodriguez, who had investigated Marcus Thompson's death. We scheduled secret meetings for the coming days. The plan was taking shape. It wasn't just about exposing Helena. It was about building a case so solid that neither her reputation nor her connections could protect her. But as I organized evidence in the silent darkness of the early morning, one question haunted my mind. Did Helena really believe I would consider becoming her partner, or was she just toying with me, like a cat with a mouse, before the final blow? The next morning, I would discover that I had completely underestimated how far Helena was willing to go to protect her secrets. 3 days after my secret meeting with Lisa Chun and private investigator Marcus Rodriguez, Helena woke up in an especially affectionate mood. "Good morning, love," she murmured, kissing my forehead as I pretended to still be asleep. "I thought I'd make us a special breakfast today. That pancake recipe you love so much." Through my half-open eyelids, I watched her head to the kitchen with an energy I hadn't seen in weeks. There was something different about her movements, a barely concealed urgency that made my blood run cold. I got up quietly and followed her, keeping myself hidden in the hallway. Helena was in the kitchen, not making pancakes, but stirring something in a small glass jar. Even from a distance, I recognized the colorless liquid she was carefully pouring into a coffee cup. It was the same type of bottle I had found hidden behind the cleaning supplies a week earlier, a bottle I had photographed and sent to Marcus Rodriguez for analysis. Ricin. Extracted from castor beans, it was virtually undetectable in a superficial autopsy, especially if the victim already had a history of stomach problems. Helena was no longer playing cat and mouse. She had decided that our conversation about partnership was irrelevant. Today would be my last day. I quickly returned to the bedroom and grabbed my phone, sending a quick message to Marcus, Today is the day. Execute the plan. When I went down to the kitchen 10 minutes later, pretending I had just woken up, Helena greeted me with a beaming smile. "Fresh coffee for my favorite husband," she chirped, pushing the cup toward me. "Thanks, honey. But you know I can't drink coffee on an empty stomach." I took the cup and set it aside. "How about we eat first?" A flash of irritation crossed Helena's face, but she quickly regained her composure. "Sure, honey. How about some toast?" While she was making the toast, I discreetly poured the coffee down the sink and refilled the cup with regular coffee from the thermos. When Helena turned around, she found me drinking quietly. "I changed my mind," I said with a smile. "I was thirstier than I thought." Helena watched every sip I pretended to take, her eyes shining with an anticipatory satisfaction that made me want to vomit. "Great," she murmured. "How about we go out today? We can drive to that lookout in the mountains that you like so much. Fresh air would be good for your nerves." The lookout. Of course. A secluded spot where accidents could easily happen, especially if I started to feel sick while driving. Good idea. Let me just finish a few things on the computer before we leave. In my home office, I finalized the last details. I uploaded all the files to a cloud server, sent copies to Marcus Rodriguez and Dorothy Miller, and created an email schedule to be sent automatically to the police in 12 hours if I didn't cancel the sending. At 10 in the morning, Helena and I were in the car, driving toward the mountains. She was particularly talkative, commenting on our future life together, trips we could take, investments we should consider. "You know," she said casually as I drove along the winding road, "I've been thinking a lot about our conversation the other night. About becoming partners. And I think it would be perfect. You have the technical skills, I have the practical experience. We could be unbeatable." Throughout the conversation, she discreetly watched my face, looking for signs that the ricin was taking effect. Dizziness, sweating, nausea. But I had poured the poisoned coffee down the sink. What she saw as symptoms of poisoning were actually the effects of adrenaline rushing through my system as I prepared for the final confrontation. "Helena," I interrupted gently when we reached the empty parking lot at the lookout, "there's something I need to tell you." "What is it?" Her voice had lost some of its artificial sweetness. "I know about Tommy Williams, and Marcus Thompson, and Daniel Johnson, and Robert Chun, and Kevin Miller." Helena stood completely still. For a long moment, only the sound of the wind in the trees filled the silence between us. "Interesting," she said finally, her voice now completely different. Cold, calculating, without any trace of the loving woman I thought I had married. "And what exactly do you think you know?" "I know you killed them. All of them. And I know you planned to kill me today." Helena began to laugh, a low, disturbing sound that echoed across the empty parking lot. "Do you really believe you can confront me with this? Here? Alone?" She opened her purse and took out a small silver pistol. "Even if you had any proof, which you don't, who would believe you?" "No one," I agreed calmly. "That's why I'm not just telling people. I'm telling cameras." Helena frowned, confused, until she heard the sound of engines approaching. 3 cars drove up the road toward the lookout, a police car, a car from the Criminal Investigation Department, and Marcus Rodriguez's private sedan. "You see, Helena," I continued as she stared in panic at the approaching cars, "for the past 5 days, I've been wearing a microphone and camera connected to my phone. Every conversation we've had has been recorded and transmitted in real time to Marcus Rodriguez." The color drained completely from Helena's face. "That includes your detailed confession about Tommy Williams, your description of how you perfected your techniques, and your offer to make me your partner in future murders." I paused and looked her straight in the eye. "And it also includes you offering me coffee laced with ricin this morning." Helena raised the pistol, but her hand was shaking violently. "That doesn't matter," she shouted. "There's no way to prove I killed anyone. They were all accidents." "You're right," I agreed. "Attempted murder and possession of toxic substances are perhaps the only charges that will stick immediately." Detective Marcus Rodriguez got out of his car, followed by 2 uniformed police officers. But they didn't go to Helena first. They went straight to a specific spot on the lookout that I had discreetly marked days before. "Of course," I continued, my voice gaining strength, "that's before they dig up what's buried down there." Helena followed my gaze and saw the officers beginning to dig in a specific area near the edge of the lookout. Her face changed from confusion to absolute horror. You see, Helena, when I began to seriously investigate you, I discovered something interesting about this place. Kevin Miller, your second husband, did not die in a car accident as you reported. The police were digging methodically, and it was already possible to see fragments of fabric emerging from the earth. Kevin found out about Tommy Williams, didn't he? He found evidence, maybe photos, maybe documents. And when he confronted you about it, you couldn't risk him telling anyone. Helena was now completely pale, the gun shaking in her trembling hand. Dorothy Miller, Kevin's mother, never believed the accident story. She hired Marcus Rodriguez to investigate. And Marcus discovered that Kevin had called his mother the night before his death, saying he had discovered something terrible about you and that he would meet her the next day to tell her everything. Marcus Rodriguez approached us, speaking calmly into his radio. Kevin never made it to his mother's house because you brought him here first. You killed him here, buried the body, and then staged the car accident using another corpse. That's crazy, Helena whispered, but her voice no longer carried any conviction. The second body was never properly identified because you bribed the coroner. But bribes leave traces, Helena. And Marcus Rodriguez is very, very good at following traces. At that moment, one of the police officers shouted, "We found something." Helena looked at the excavation, then at the approaching police officers, and finally at me. "You," she whispered in a voice filled with pure hatred. "You ruined everything." "No," I replied calmly. "You ruined everything the moment you decided that human lives were just obstacles to your greed." Detective Marcus Rodriguez approached us, his handcuffs already in hand. "Helena Rodriguez," he said officially, "you are under arrest on suspicion of first-degree murder, attempted murder, and possession of controlled substances for criminal purposes." As the handcuffs clicked around her wrists, Helena looked at me one last time. "This isn't over," she hissed. "Oh, but it is," I replied. "Dorothy Miller, Lisa Chun, and the families of the other 3 men are all prepared to testify. Marcus has physical evidence from 5 different murders. And I have recordings of you confessing everything." I paused and smiled for the first time in weeks. "The only thing that's not over is finding out how many other men you killed before Tommy Williams. But we have time for that. You're not going anywhere." As Helena was put into the police car, screaming threats and denials, Marcus Rodriguez approached me. "How do you feel?" he asked. I watched the police car disappear around the bend in the mountain road, taking with it the woman who had been my wife, my would-be killer, and the most intelligent serial killer I had ever known. "Like a man who has just discovered he can trust justice again," I replied. But as I drove home alone, one question haunted my mind. How many other Kevins, Daniels, Roberts, Marcus, and Tommies were out there, buried in places only Helena knew? And more importantly, how would I live knowing that I had almost become just another name on a list that might never be fully uncovered? 6 months later, the courtroom was packed for the final verdict against Helena Rodriguez. I was sitting in the front row, between Dorothy Miller and Lisa Chun, watching the woman who had almost destroyed my life being led in handcuffs to the dock. During those months of investigation, the full scale of Helena's crimes had been revealed to be staggering. In addition to the 6 murders we already knew about, the police had uncovered evidence of 4 other men killed over the course of a decade. 10 lives taken, 10 families torn apart, all for the insatiable greed of a single person. "Helena Rodriguez," Judge Margaret Foster pronounced, her voice echoing through the silent courtroom, "you have been found guilty of first-degree murder on 10 counts, attempted murder, fraud, document forgery, and criminal conspiracy." Helena stood upright, but I could see her hands trembling slightly. The mask of charm and vulnerability had completely disintegrated, revealing only empty coldness. Considering the premeditated nature of these crimes and the systematic pattern of preying on vulnerable men, the court sentences you to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The gavel struck with finality. Dorothy Miller began to cry quietly beside me, not out of sadness, but out of deep relief. Finally, after years of pain, Kevin and all the other victims had obtained justice. As Helena was escorted out of the courtroom, she turned one last time in our direction. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, I saw not the calculating predator she had been, but a woman who finally understood that her actions had irreversible consequences. I felt no vengeful satisfaction. I felt only the closing of a terrible chapter and the possibility of beginning to rebuild. In the weeks following the arrests, we discovered that Helena had not operated entirely alone. A corrupt accountant named Gerald Nash had helped move funds from the stolen properties through offshore accounts. A registry office employee had forged death certificates for $5,000 each. An insurance investigator had expedited the payment of policies without performing proper checks. All were arrested. The entire network of corruption that Helena had built was dismantled, leaving a trail that led to significant reforms in the city's insurance and public records departments. Investigator Marcus Rodriguez became head of a new special division dedicated to investigating matrimonial fraud and serial financial crimes. Cases like yours, he told me during our last official meeting, have taught us that predators like Helena thrive because we operate on the presumption of good faith. We now have specific protocols to detect patterns before more lives are lost. As for me, the following months were a process of careful reconstruction. Therapy was essential, not only to process the trauma of discovering that my wife was a serial killer, but to understand how I had been so completely manipulated. You weren't stupid or naive, my therapist, Dr. Sarah Mitchell, assured me during one of our sessions. People like Helena are professional predators. They study human psychology, identify specific vulnerabilities, and create elaborate personas specifically designed to bypass your defenses. I learned that my loneliness after my parents' death had made me an ideal target. Helena had identified my need for connection and constructed a personality that filled that void perfectly. Every romantic gesture, every moment of shared vulnerability, every declaration of love, everything had been meticulously calculated. But I also learned that recognizing manipulation does not minimize the strength required to escape it. Many victims never manage to break free because manipulators are experts at breaking down self-confidence and critical judgment. Selling my house was one of the first practical decisions I made. Every room was filled with memories contaminated by Helena. Instead, I moved to a smaller apartment in the city center, a space that was completely mine, without ghosts from the past. I resumed hobbies that I had abandoned during my marriage. Helena had subtly discouraged my passion for photography, claiming that I spent too much time on it. I now understand that it was part of her isolation strategy. The less interest I had in independent activities, the more emotionally dependent on her I became. Photography became therapeutic. Capturing genuine moments, real people living authentic lives, helped me rediscover what was real versus performed. My relationship with trust has fundamentally changed. I didn't become cynical or paranoid, but I developed what I call healthy skepticism. I learned to pay attention to actions versus words, to notice when someone asked very specific questions about my financial life, and to trust my intuition when something seemed too good to be true. 6 months after the trial, Dorothy Miller invited me to dinner. She had become a kind of mother figure to me, and I a surrogate son to her. We shared not only the experience of having been targeted by Helena, but also a deep understanding of how manipulation can affect one's ability to trust again. You saved many lives, she told me that night, holding a photo of Kevin as a young boy. If you hadn't had the courage to confront her, how many other men would have died? The question haunted me in a positive way. Helena's investigation had revealed that she was already researching her next target, a 62-year-old widower named Frank Morrison who had inherited a significant rural property. Helena had created a fake profile on a dating site and had already started chatting with him. Frank was notified by the police and narrowly avoided becoming the 11th victim. When I met him months later, he thanked me with tears in his eyes. I was so lonely, he admitted. If she had come into my life promising companionship and love, I would have fallen into the same trap. This made me realize that my experience, as traumatic as it was, had a greater purpose. I began volunteering with support groups for victims of abusive relationships, sharing my story to help others recognize the signs of manipulation. If you're following this journey of betrayal, discovery, and eventual triumph of justice, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that even in the most desperate situations, the truth has the power to transform victims into survivors. A year after Helena's arrest, I received an unexpected call. It was from an investigative journalist named Rebecca Stone, who was writing a book about financial crimes in relationships. Your story, she told me, perfectly exemplifies how financial predators operate in the 21st century. They aren't the obvious con artists from the movies. They are seemingly respectable people who use romance as a weapon. Rebecca's book, when it was published, included an entire chapter on the Helena Rodriguez case. More importantly, it included a section of resources for people who suspect they are in manipulative relationships, emergency numbers, warning signs, safe exit strategies. During the interview for the book, Rebecca asked me something I had avoided considering: "Can you forgive Helena?" The question caught me off guard. Forgiveness seemed like an inappropriate word for someone who had murdered 10 people for money. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that forgiving did not mean excusing her actions or minimizing the harm she had caused. Forgiving, I explained, means freeing myself from the burden of anger. Helena no longer has power over my life. She is in prison, where she belongs. Carrying hatred for her would only hurt me. 2 years after the trial, I found love again. This time, the process was completely different. Instead of a cinematic romance that developed quickly, it was a slow and careful friendship that gradually blossomed. Jennifer was a librarian, a woman who valued authenticity over drama. Our first date was a 4-hour coffee, not because there was explosive chemistry, but because we had substantial conversations about books, travel, and life values. Most importantly, Jennifer completely respected my gradual process of rebuilding trust. When I told her my story about Helena, her reaction was not pity or discomfort, but genuine understanding and patience. Trust, she told me, is not something you should or shouldn't give. It's something you build through consistency over time. Our relationship developed organically, based on mutual honesty and open communication. Jennifer never pressured me about financial matters, never suggested rapid changes to our legal situation, never showed excessive interest in my economic stability. When we finally decided to get married, 3 years after meeting, it was with a detailed prenuptial agreement, not out of mistrust, but for clarity and mutual protection. Jennifer suggested the agreement, understanding that financial transparency was crucial to my peace of mind. Today, 5 years after Helena's arrest, I live a life that is both more cautious and more authentic than before. The experience taught me that vulnerability is not weakness, but discernment is power. I keep in regular contact with the families of Helena's other victims. We have become a kind of chosen family, united not only by tragedy but by the collective strength we found in facing the truth. Lisa Chun started a foundation in memory of her brother Robert, offering educational resources on marriage fraud. Dorothy Miller became an advocate for victims of violent crime, using her experience to help other mothers who have lost children. We have all turned our pain into purpose. The last I heard about Helena, she was serving her sentence in a maximum security prison. According to reports, she had attempted to manipulate other prisoners and staff, but her patterns were now recognized and neutralized. She never showed genuine remorse. Even during the trial, her tears seemed calculated to generate sympathy. Some people, I realized, are fundamentally incapable of genuine empathy. But this is not a reflection on human nature in general. For every Helena Rodriguez in the world, there are thousands of people like Dorothy Miller, Lisa Chun, Marcus Rodriguez, and Jennifer, people who choose to use their strength to protect and support others. My story ends not with revenge, but with redemption. Helena tried to reduce me to a victim, a number on her list of financial targets. Instead, I discovered that I am much more resilient, intelligent, and courageous than I ever imagined. If this story touched your heart, if you recognize signs of manipulation in your own life, or if you simply appreciate stories about justice prevailing over cruelty, please subscribe to the channel. Share your own experience in the comments. Sometimes telling our truth is the first step to reclaiming our power. The most important lesson I learned is not to distrust everyone, but to trust myself. To trust my intuition when something feels wrong. To trust my ability to investigate when I need the truth. And to trust my strength to face whatever truth I uncover. Helena Rodriguez tried to write my story as a tragedy. Instead, I discovered that I am the author of my own narrative, a story not of victimization, but of survival, growth, and ultimately triumph. And that is a story no predator can rewrite.